This event is structured around several modules, starting with Karen Bett's introduction from GPSDD. After this, we will have two short presentations from Martinho Rubal and Jimena Clark, experts working for the collaborative and developing guidance and tools and other material, followed by a poll. For your information, the poll is already available on Yammer, and the link will be available on the chat. We will then have the pleasure to listen to our colleagues Mustafa Kabaja from Statistics Palestine and Federico Segui from Statistics Uruguay, sharing their country experiences, success stories, and challenges with administrative data providers. After a teaser on the Nordic model presented by Silja Emmel, our third expert working with us on the collaborative, we will have a round of questions and answers. We will eventually wrap up with the closing remarks presented by Vibeke Österreich-Nielsen. As for other side events and webinars of that size, we invite participants to share their questions and comments via the chat window. Last but not least, I would kindly ask our presenters to limit themselves to the time allocated for their respective interventions. We have questions and answers at the end, and it would be nice to have a little bit of time for that. And of course, participants to keep their microphones closed unless invited to take the floor. We will now start with the opening remarks. Mrs. Karen Bett is the policy manager for the Global Partnership for Sustainable Development Data, GPSDD. As I mentioned before, she works on advancing GPSDD's policy work on inclusion and equity and supports the strengthening of foundational data systems. Karen leads jointly with Vibeke the organization's work in the collaborative on administrative data and support the work on citizen-generated data. Karen has spent over 10 years working in international development, and she's based in Nairobi. Karen, the floor is yours, and you have 7 minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Gabriel, and thanks for the kind introduction. It's a real pleasure to be having this side event once again virtually. We did this last year, but it's a real pleasure, and thanks to colleagues for making time to join us today. Maybe for the benefit of colleagues who are hearing about the collaborative for the first time, I'll just use my opening remarks to say a little bit about what the collaborative is, and then I'll touch on some of the things we've achieved in the previous year and what the future looks like going forward. The collaborative, as has been mentioned, is jointly led by the Global Partnership for Sustainable Development Data and the UN Statistics Division. Really, the objective is to address both urgent and longer-term needs when it comes to accessing and using administrative data for statistical purposes. By design, we're not guided by specific sectors. We try to make sure that the collaborative touches on various issues across sectors and across institutions. So really the purpose is to provide that coherent and a space to build knowledge around administrative data across partners. It's multi-stakeholders, so we have membership of national statistical offices, we have international organizations, and we have also regional organizations, and obviously the owners of administrative data, which is ministries. It's open to everyone. So, if your organization is not part of the collaborative, would really encourage you to reach out to us and join us. At the moment, I think we are at 20 NSOs and 20 international organizations and membership of about 120 or 130 individuals who are part of the collaborative. As I said, it's a platform for learning really and sharing knowledge and experiences across countries, across regions, across sectors. The focus is on generating and sharing simple, ready to use, ready to replicate products and solutions. And you'll see some of this during our webinar today. I'd also want to just highlight that the collaborative was endorsed by the UN Statistics Commission last year, 2021. And this year, again, we've submitted a background paper for agenda item 3A on the collaborative what has been our experiences, what have we learned in running the collaborative. I'd encourage you to look at the background paper, but I'll also share just a few of the things that we feel are achievements of the collaborative. As I have said, it's an exchange, a learning platform, and learning collaborative, fully virtual because we established during COVID times. So we've been running all our activities virtually. We're divided into task teams, 3 task teams, and which in this year, actually, we're thinking also of introducing work streams. We have a very special offer, which we call expert clinics, which allow countries and institutions to learn from one another on key issues or on key challenges that they may be facing, and they want to learn from other counterparts in different regions. So far, we've hosted 4 expert clinics, and as a result, we've included 19 members of the collaborative in this expert clinic. We have a very rich inventory of resources on our website, and I know my colleagues will be putting the link to the website on the chat. But the resource has over 90, the inventory rather, has over 90 resources that you can, have a look and see what other countries have done on administrative data. We also generated 25 case studies from members of the collaborative, and all that are found in the inventory. We also have some guiding principles of the collaborative, what we aspire to do and to be as a collaborative, and all this also available on the link on the chat of the collaborative page. And lastly, we have a Yammer group. I know it was mentioned earlier that we've just launched a poll in the Yammer group, and we have an admin data collaborative in the Yammer group on statistical data owners and statisticians. Last but not least, we feel we're really proud of the tools that we developed last year on the self-assessment tool of legal frameworks and MOU guidance and templates. And I know my colleague Martina and Jimena will be saying more about that later in this webinar, so I won't go into the details. As I wrap up, what does 2022 look like for us as a collaborative? We're really going full on in trying to raise more resources, generate more knowledge around the collaborative, and also bring in more data owners, so the ministries, departments, and agencies who actually produce this admin data, so that we link them up with the national statistical offices. As I wrap up, just to say, a very warm welcome once again. We hope that you'd find the discussions today very enlightening, and as we encourage you to reach out to us if you want to join the collaborative, if you want to be part of this. Our doors are always open. So with those few remarks, I'm really excited to be part of this session, and I'll hand you back to Gabriel, and hand the session back to you, Gabriel, for the other events. Thank you and most welcome.
Thank you very much, Karen, for your opening remarks. And I take note of the collaborative actually providing ready-to-use products and solutions. And part of this portfolio, we have the expert clinics that are very important. And I wanted to mention already here that one country, Mustafa actually representing Palestine, that will make an intervention today. Palestine is very active and engaged in the clinics. So thank you very much, Karen. Now, for the second module of this event, we will have a presentation from Martinho on a guidance document on MOU administrative data owners, and then a presentation on self-assessment tool by Jimena. Mr. Martinho Rubal Maceda is currently a UNSD consultant, supporting. Okay, something happened here on my screen. 2 seconds. Yes, thank you. The use of administrative data for statistical purposes. He has worked with different international organizations and universities as a consultant, inter alia UNESCO, UNDP, UNSD, City University of London. Beyond administrative data and statistics, he works on education and vocational education assessments and the transition from education to labor market in developing countries. He has been a staff of the European Commission and researcher at different universities and research centers in Europe. Martinho, the floor is yours. You have up to 10 minutes. Thank you very much, Martinho.
Thank you, Gabriel, and I'm very happy to be with all of you and introduce these guidelines. Within the framework of this collaborative, one of the outputs of this collaborative is this guiding document, this on how to use memorandum of understandings as instruments to improve coordination and cooperation. Data sharing among government entities remains a challenge in many countries, and coordination and cooperation among different agencies can be formalized through MOUs that specify the roles and responsibilities of the different actors, issues related to data security, confidentiality, and so on. So the objective of this document is to provide some guidelines on how NSOs formalize MOUs with data providers, with ministries, departments, and agencies to foster coordination and cooperation. Next slide, please. The approach of these guidelines is very practical in the sense that we provide examples from real MOUs between national statistical offices and different ministries, agencies, and departments. It is very flexible in the sense that what we provide are mainly suggestions, not prescriptions. We provide examples from different contexts and with different degree of complexity that can be used potentially by countries to establish their own MOUs. It is general since it is not focused on a particular domain, for example, on economic data, and can be adapted to very different domains. And it is comprehensive since it considers elements that countries should think in advance. Next slide, please. To build these guidelines, we have reviewed MOUs from very different countries. Many countries have shared their MOUs with us, and there are very good examples of countries that publish their MOUs in the web. We have reviewed, for example, MOUs from Bangladesh, Botswana, Canada, Denmark, the European Union, Ireland, Namibia, Norway, Palestine, UK, USA, and Uruguay. So we try to cover a wide geographical scope in order to provide examples from countries that are in different development situations, more developed countries and more developing countries. Next, please. There might be many different reasons why to share data. We will show today few reasons that are common to different countries. There might be other reasons, and there might be as well reasons that are country specific. But one of the elements that can be good to have MOUs is to overcome challenges in getting the data. For example, unpredictable data delivery timeframes or varying formats, the need of extensive follow-up and reminders, and as well interruptions of data delivery due to staff turnover. So through the MOUs, there are countries that establish timeframes for data sharing or establish formats in some cases. And they define as well the contacts, who will be those in charge of sharing the data. So all these challenges can be somehow overcome through MOUs. And the MOUs are quite good as well to deal with sensitive or confidential data by establishing some mutual understanding of the measures and the infrastructure that could be used to overcome these challenges. And as well, to foster win-win situations. MOUs can include somehow a two-way exchange. So the NSO, the National Statistical Office, can get the data, but in return, in many countries, the NSO gives something back to the producer agency. That can be analysis, can be some indicator, build some indicators, some training, or a quality assessment. And we have seen many examples from different countries that there are these exchanges. For example, in Norway, the NSO gives back to the registers an assessment of the quality of the data they have received. and many other cases. For example, in Palestine, they give back training, for example, to the ministries, departments, and agencies. Next, please. Another reason could be to streamline the data dissemination or to improve the data quality, since there will be two actors assessing the quality of the data. So on the long run, on the long term, there will be improvements in data quality. Next, please. This, what we have conceived is the MOUs that could be part of a broader strategic approach to improve the use of administrative data for statistical purposes. Many countries do have this or use the MOUs as part of a broad strategic approach to improve the data and the use of admin data for statistics. It could be explicitly put it in written in some strategic documents, or could be implicit. And we have here two examples today, Palestine and Uruguay, that they have used as well MOUs to improve the use in their countries of administrative data. So in this strategic approach, we somehow define any national statistical offices guide this process, and the different stakeholders participate. So the first step for this approach is to review the legal frameworks, which are, of course, the legal context, to be aware of what are the boundaries within which we are moving, or data is shared. The second step is to map the different providers of administrative data and the quality, assessing the quality of their data. And there are many examples in the countries that do this in another way or in a more systematic way. The third step is to review the coordination mechanisms that are existing in the country. In many cases, in many countries, there are task forces on administrative data, could be more general or could be in a specific domain. But all these elements, the legal framework, the having knowledge of the different providers and the coordination mechanisms, help in defining the fourth step, which is defining the elements that will be part of these MOUs and that will enhance coordination and cooperation with the different actors. Next, please. So there can be many different elements. We have seen that there is some elements that recurrently appear in different MOUs. And what we have done in these guidelines is to provide a kind of menu of elements that are normally part of the MOUs. We define each of these elements, and we provide examples with real MOUs, how countries actually approach each of these elements with real examples. And normally, in these MOUs, there is a definition of the parties, of course, that are part of these MOUs. What is the concrete purpose of the document, the legal basis, the somehow legal boundaries. In some cases, as well, the duration of the MOU is established. Very important, the obligations and the responsibilities of the parties. In some cases, as well, incentives. It is not something that appear in all of the MOUs, but in some, we have seen that there is already in the agreements a clear understanding of what incentives will be to coordinate, to cooperate, and to share the data, which are the responsible parties and the focal points. And in some cases as well, some data quality standards should be respected for coordination, cooperation, and data sharing. And this is established as well in the MOUs. And confidentiality and security, very important. We have seen many countries are applying very strict policies regarding confidentiality and security. So more and more, these elements are becoming important and are reflecting in the MOUs as well. In some cases, some MOUs define how the amendments can be done and how the information will be used and who will be able to use this information. Next, please. And all these, for each of these elements, we provide a definition and we provide examples with real MOUs. This is, and at the end of this guidance, we also provide a template on how, next please, how an MOU could look like, a kind of template that countries could use to establish their own MOUs. And I would like to finalize, not to extend my intervention too much. Maybe later on I could answer to questions if there are any. But I would like to end with a good case. In some cases, NSOs not only establish MOUs with different data providers or ministries, departments, and agencies, but they also share these MOUs. They make these agreements public. They publish them in internet, for example, in Ireland. And this is a very good example of transparency and that gives somehow confidence on the work that the NSO and all the national statistical system and all the institutions that are creating data somehow give confidence to the user on how the different stakeholders are coordinating, are working together, and so on. So publishing these MOUs is indeed a very good policy, a very good example for the different stakeholders and for the general public. And thank you very much. I give back the floor to you, Gabriel. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Martinho. And of course, the tool is available on the website of the collaborative. Thank you. This is very important. As you mentioned, the law is important, but the law does not solve everything. We need to go at a more operational level. I mean, also to deal with element of confidentiality, data protection, but also to look at these win-win situation and these quality elements. I mean, when we use administrative data for statistical purposes. But one other point that I found very important, or the two other points, is that it can be and should be a building block of a strategic approach to the use of administrative data, and at the same time can be used also for transparency and trust. I mean, if we publish them on the webpage of the National Statistical Office. Thank you very much, Martinho, for this presentation. So now we will go to our second presentation for this module. Jimena Clark served as a former General Director of the National Institute of Statistics of Chile from 2014 to 2018, and has been a consultant of statistical institutional aspects for the Inter-American Development Bank, for National Statistics Offices of Latin America. Lately, she has supported UNSD and GPSDD on the collaborative on administrative data. Jimena will present us a very important, innovative self-assessment tool. Jimena, unfortunately, you have only 5 minutes to present it. Go ahead, please.
Okay. Thank you, Gabriel, and hello to everyone. So I'm going to very fast start to share my presentation here. Okay. Yeah, okay. So as I said, I will briefly present this self-assessment tool for legal framework. This is part of the work of the collaborative. And just to start by saying that the objective of this self-assessment tool is to help you, the statistical community, and in particular NSOs, to review how your current statistical legislation facilitates or not the access and use of administrative data. As Martinho just said, it is important to start by knowing how is your legislation, how a facilitator is or not. So basically, the tool is a set of questions, which in turn are based on the UN Generic Law on Official Statistics, the GLOS, and their adaptations. And we divide them in dimensions. The most important one is, we all know, to have access, unrestricted access to administrative data. And of course, on a continuous provision basis. But this is not the only one. Having also a clear mandate for data collection in the law, so that members of the NSS can choose their data sources based on professional considerations such as quality, cost, response burden, or other, is also very important. But then aspect associated to confidentiality, which is key for the statistical production, or professional independence, or the fact that the use of administrative data has to be only for a statistical purpose, and also aspect regarding the management of the data, a secure data processing and storage, are all very important as facilitators of this access we would like to have to administrative data. So, as I said, the tool is an easy to complete. It's a survey that will show for every question a result and an explanation, which is very important. For now, it's a Excel template. You will have the set of questions, as you can see on the sheet here, and then as soon as you complete with your answers, you will be redirected to a page with your result. And as you can see, you will have the rule for every question, so you will understand why you have more or less point. And also at the end of this result, you will have a table with the result for dimensions. But more importantly, you will have an explanation for every dimension and for every question. So you will really understand, first identify, but then understand what are those important elements for each of the dimensions that I just showed that you should have in your legislation. Now, the other thing is that we will have a score for what is written in the law, but we will also have a score regarding what is happening in reality, because we all know that sometimes laws are not absolutely enforced, or you might have good practices that are not in the law, which is very good, but we know sometimes this is unstable, but it still is very good. So you will have a result of this type, score 1. Here you have the dimensions, and so it's a kind of traffic light result. And then you will be able to compare that with the law and the practice. So in this particular example, you can see how the dimensions could improve or could worsen. Here you have the particular case in which for this very important dimension, which is the access to administrative data, you have a worse result when you look at the reality. So here you have all the elements basically to address those aspects and to improve your access to administrative data. As I said at the beginning, this is a tool for you. So it is intended to be helpful for whatever you are doing right now. You could be maybe thinking on improving your legislation. You might be having conversations with policymakers on that. So here you have all the elements. And as this is for you, your results are also for you. They will not be shared with anyone, unless, of course, you decide to share them with us, in which case we might use also, or we might do benchmark study, which we believe is also in your interest. But what is important is you have here all the elements in order to assess your legislation, in order to decide from which side you would like to improve it, so you can improve the access to administrative data. So having said all of that, you are all invited to experience your own assessment with this tool, which we hope, we believe will help you to identify, to understand, and hopefully to address those issues regarding the access of administrative data that are so needed to improve the quality of official statistics. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jimena. You have been as concise and effective than the tool that you have developed. I mean, with exactly 5 minutes for your presentation. Of course, I mean, you could have presented this tool much longer, right? I mean, it's a very, very nice tool. I invite everybody, and the link is here on the chat. I invite everybody to take a look and participate. And since we are all inclusive, the tool will be also available in Spanish rather soon, and at a later stage also in French. So we try really to make this tool available for everybody. It's a great one. And I think it complements rather well also what was presented before by Martinho, in the way that we had the two most important elements in the governance for the access to administrative data. On one side, the legislation. Is my legislation ready? I mean, to get access, to enhance, to support the access to administrative data. And then about this memorandum of understanding that actually are governing the more, I would say, operational element of the exchange of information. So thank you very much, Jimena. Now we will move to the poll, as mentioned before. I don't know if it's Karen or Freddie that will guide us, or maybe both of us. Just maybe also to be fair, Freddie Rodriguez Galvis is Karen's colleague at GPSDD, Senior Latin American and the Caribbean Regional Manager for GPSDD. Before, Freddie worked for CEPE, an independent data-driven think tank that promotes dialogue, debate, knowledge, and multi-stakeholder participation in global agendas on sustainable development. I hope I was not wrong, Freddie, because actually you didn't send me your bio, but this is what I found about you. So let's go with now the poll, please. Yeah.
Yeah, so the poll should be on your screen, and we're asking the question: does your country have MOUs or other formal agreements in place between administrative data owners and statistical offices? So far, we have 30% who've participated, so continue completing the poll. I think there's a clear lead in terms of people feeling that they do have formal agreements in place generally. So maybe we'll give it another half a minute, and then we should be able to close the poll. And back to you, Gabriel.
Thank you very much, Karen. And then we will open the questions and answers. I think that the poll will help us in that. Results are interesting. Of course, the participation is confidential, so don't be afraid. We don't have to look good always.
Okay, so I'll end the poll in a few seconds. And I see a comment on the poll does not have an I don't know option, which is true,
We got in the chat a comment telling us that, of course, some people maybe are not aware if there is or not formal agreements in place, and of course we could have had a little box, I mean, to tick on I don't know. Good point. So from what I'm have here, and results are not now. You can continue, of course, participating, but I mean, the results are not changing tremendously at the moment. More than 80% of the participants are telling us that they have such agreements, MOUs. One half of these 80%, so let's say a little bit more, even 44, that this is a kind of general format that is used for the access to administrative data. The other half of this group is saying we have these agreements, but they are not systematically used with all data owners. So that's the 80%. And the rest, a little bit less than 20%, is actually half again, telling us that they don't have these kind of agreements, but other kinds of informal deals with the data owners. And a last group, 10%, telling us that they don't have at all agreements governing the access to administrative data with administrative data owners. So this is the result that I can see here. Plus, of course, a few that wanted maybe to answer, I don't know. But that's the result, I think, that we have now. I mean, I don't know, Karen, do you want to continue with the poll, or do you think also that we got now the full picture of the situation and how it works with our participants here?
Yeah, I think we sort of have a fairly good picture, and we have this same poll on Yammer, so colleagues can continue giving their feedback through the Yammer link, which we'll just put in the chat.
Yes, thank you very much. And in the Yammer link, of course, there you can also go and comment, right? If I'm correct. So if someone wants to leave us also some comments or some points to explain why they have voted something, I mean, or gave their voices to one box or tick one box rather than the other one, they can also leave us that. This survey, this poll is very useful also for us for the future. I mean, of the collaborative, because it informs us a little bit where the countries are at the moment and where we have to focus a little bit more of our efforts and the work. I mean, in order to help you, because that's the main purpose of the collaborative. We can open the questions and answers. Then I got one. I mean, already that is about the incentive. Martino, you mentioned that the memorandum of understanding should also help us, I mean, to discuss or actually to state the different incentives that the partners have. Can you explain a little bit more what kind of incentive could be on both sides for getting the access to these data, or giving access to these data, and how this can be governed in a MOU? Thank you, Martino.
Sure. Thank you for the question, Diana. I was answering in writing to the question, but maybe it's better to provide another response. Well, in terms of incentives, normally what we see in MOUs are incentives towards the data provider, those ministries, agencies, departments that provide the data to the NSO. So in exchange, in some cases, the NSO can provide to these entities indicators, for example, based on the data they have received, or some analysis that go beyond the creation of indicators, that do somehow an analysis of the different indicators, or what the data contains, what the data tells about the situation. Other incentives could be training, and we have seen this in many examples, that NSOs offer training to the ministry departments and agencies on different aspects of data entry, could be on data quality and metadata, on many different aspects where the NSO might have more resources, more people staffed. Other incentives.
Martino, can you just be sharp and fast, because we still have presentations coming, right? I just split the question in answers in two because I thought we wanted to address your presentation. So please, 30 seconds more and then we have to move.
Sure. And then quality assessments on the quality of the data. And you have a good example on one of the expert clinics, on the quality expert clinic, the example of Norway that you can consult there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Martinho. And now we are going to our third module of this event. Is actually sharing national experiences. We have here with us Mustafa Kawaja and Federico Segui that will present their experience about Palestine and about Uruguay. Mustafa will discuss with us the experience of Palestine on MOU with administrative data owners and eventually providers. Since its establishments, Mr. Mustafa has worked in the Palestinian Central Bureau of Statistics. He's a Director General of the Registers and Statistical Monitoring Directorate. He's also a member of the steering committee of the national team working on the Sustainable Development Goals and acts as the coordinator of the national team for the statistical monitoring system. On top of that, Mustafa is an anti-corruption specialist in the field of developing indicators and measurement tools and holds a master's degree in democracy and human rights study Birzeit University. Mustafa, the floor is yours. Please go ahead with your presentation. Thank you very much.
So thank you very much, Gabriel, for your kind introduction and for all of those who introduced us to safe landing to my presentation. Thank you very much. I have only 8 minutes, as I learned from you before, and I will try to be as short as I can. Very quickly, can we start the presentation, please? Yeah. So simply, I can just show you how the Palestinian national process is working in terms of the sectional relation among different institutions. Mainly here, I'm trying to illustrate the idea of the, can we make additional click in order to show the arrows on the, yeah, please, thank you very much. This shows the structure of how the national institutions is working together with PCBS, which PCBS not on the top of the circle, rather than on the heart of the circle, in the heart of the circle, just because we are trying to make it a round table on how we are interactive with our partners on the national level. We have mainly two data sets. Now, the original one is the national indicators that we use to work on, which called the monitoring, national monitoring indicators. Once we received the agenda of 2030, we tried to boost the work with the same mechanism to push ahead the work on providing the data. Additional legal a license, let's say, by having the mandate officially to collect and monitor the data on SDGs along with a PCBS mandate as official statistical office data, official data provider. Now, all of what we see here on the structure here on the screen mainly related to the government ones and semi-government ones. Now, in the second slide, please, we can see the other institutions to just one back. Thank you. The other complementary institutions, in addition to the governmental, we have also the private sector, NGOs, in addition to the international agencies. Now, here we are talking about not only the international, but also the regional ones, either if it is UN agencies, regional UN agencies, or other regional institutions, like in our case, for example, the Arab League, maybe Arab Institute for Statistical Training, ISRIC institution. There is a lot of entities working in the area of statistics and data. So we are trying to have all in one with a mechanism that we are trying to make the tune to be in parallel with them. Now, we have two things here. One, we got the partnerships issue from the agenda, in addition to the no one leave behind. So we are trying to make a kind of no one leave behind, but here we are talking about no data owner, no data provider leave behind, and the partnerships to be on the three levels: national, regional, and international. Next, please. So the idea is to how we can boost the work with a kind of magic tool in order to accelerate the work on providing the admin data that related to monitor the SDGs and other statistical work. So we try to have a focus on the MOUs. MOUs is not a new brand for the Palestinian Central Bureau of Statistics, who started with this work since very long time, that we have a kind of bilateral MOUs or collective ones, but the trend is the one that it is in a bilateral one. Now, we have a kind of learning process over 2 decades of improving such MOUs to have. In the second slide, we can see mainly, next please, we can, next slide. Yeah, thank you. We can see that 3 milestones here. We have to work on a standard MOU, standard with the content, which means that we have the introduction, the subject, the purpose, obligations of PCBS and the other partners, and so on. But also we have the standard of the process, how we do the binding of the signing of the agreement, that we have to identify the needs and then to come up with the agreed function that we have to focus on. And here, maybe we have to highlight the idea of what in return for both parties should be, because the question is, I do my homework as a PCBS and the others do theirs. So in order to sign an MOU for both sides, then we have to find out incentives for both parties. So the incentive for PCBS to collect more data in order to cover more indicators, but in return for our partners, what we able to give to them. Of course, we have here the part of the contents of the obligation of PCBS towards our partners in the MOU in order to provide them the capacity, utilizing our data in other fields, complement their own data, maybe increase the technicalities. Many issues could be in return. Now, the third milestone is how we have to follow up this tool as MOU. We have to have the focal points, how to do our daily and continuous communication in addition to the reports and the review of these MOUs. Next, please.
You have 1 minute.
Yes.
Mustafa, thank you. Thank you very much. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. I'm almost there. So we are trying to keep this process under the statistical framework on how to work together. For example, once we are talking about the GSPPM as part of the framework that we have to to work within, not only just to have the brand of the GSPPM, rather than to have the process to improve and develop the work of the statistical work. Now, I can say at the end that MOUs, as part of our tools that we are working with our data owners, should start from what we can provide and also what for we have to do it, and then the way forward to improve the work. Let me stop here. Of course, the presentation will be circulated by you, and let me finally say thank you very much for the project that brought us in with our colleagues in UNSD, not only in the clinic part, but also the umbrella of UNSD FDCO, a project that we benefited from, not only in the theoretical part, but also on how we interacted with our partners and with our colleagues over the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mustafa. You mentioned again, of course, the clinic, important. The link is in the chat, so please, colleagues, click there and have a look. A very interesting presentation, Mustafa. Thank you very much. This mapping, you start the whole process with the mapping. Where are the owners of administrative data? What kind of data set do they have? This is an important starting point. And something that you mentioned is also the procedures actually to follow up on the implementation of these memorandum of understanding. It's not only important to have, of course, a ceremony and sign these documents. That's an important event. It's a milestone, of course, but then also to have clear ideas on how we are going to follow up on the implementation. Thank you very much. The second presentation will be from Federico Segui, who will share the Uruguay's experience in formalizing agreements with administrative data owners. Federico is Deputy Director General of the National Statistical Institute of Uruguay. He's also the Institute's data steward and responsible for implementing the data warehouse, an integrated system of statistical registers and surveys at the NSI. He has been a consultant for several international organizations on statistics, based on administrative registers, statistics, quality metadata, and microdata anonymization. He's also the author of various publications and papers on those topics. Federico, I stop here with the description, your bio. It could be much longer, of course, but the floor is yours, please. 8, maximum 10 minutes for your presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gabriel. I hope you see my screen.
Yes.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everybody. Many thanks to the UNSD and GPSDD to inviting me as a speaker in this important event. I will tell you the experience of the National Statistical Institute of Uruguay in formalizing agreements with administrative data owners. Yeah, okay. The NSI has implemented a data stewardship strategy to build strong and mutually beneficial relationships with its data providers, among other things. The NSI considers data as an asset, so the data stewardship strategy focuses on ensuring data is of high quality, easily accessible, and is used efficiently and appropriately. This data stewardship strategy is based on 4 pillars: data sources discovery, data infrastructure, data interoperability, and data management. Which means extensively reuse of public and privately held administrative data for statistical purposes, an inventory of administrative registers and other sources, prioritize the use of administrative data or data already collected first rather than conducting surveys. Also improving the IT infrastructure and promote the use of the government interoperability platform for the data exchange. master data management, and data quality management. The NSI has adopted the GovLab methodology on collaborative data exchange projects that is based on 7 phases. The first phase is understand and prioritize the demand, analyze data supply, designing and operationalizing trusted data collaborative, establish partnerships, manage insights, conducting responsible data analysis, decisions based on knowledge, using insights to inform action and decision making. And the final phase is systematize, so interacting and institutionalizing that works, what works. Let me tell you that our legal framework is quite beneficial for the NSI in terms of access to administrative registers at microdata level, identified microdata data sets, but it's necessary to complement it with a set of interinstitutional coordination mechanisms. The legal framework alone is not enough. So let's see the steps that the NSI follows to formalize the agreement with the data owners. The first step is to analyze and prioritize demands from, for instance, sustainable development goals, users, or new statistics. Analyze possible data sources, the inventory of administrative registers, contacts on specific topics, and then we follow a snowball strategy to know as many data sources as possible. The first contact with the data owners at technical level, then we design incentives for data owners, for instance, training, technical cooperation, developing new statistics, dashboards, visualizations. Then the Director General of the NSI has a formal meeting with data owners, authorities, ministers. Then the Memorandum of Understanding is signed. It could be a general framework or a specific agreement. All the MOUs are published on the webpage of the Institute of the NSI. After that, a technical meeting is conducted to establish a specific operational details of data exchange. The data exchange process is executed. The NSI provides services to data owners, incentives, and of course, the data collaborative initiative is continuously improved to keep the data faucet open, you know. Here we have the structure of the Memorandum of Understanding, the purpose of the agreement, the legal basis, responsibility, counterparts, description of data share, data to share, the services or products where we think in some incentives for the data owners, data protection and confidentiality, and the terms of use of data. Let's see some of the services or products we provide to our data owners as incentives to keep the data faucet open. Some examples are training on statistics, coding of open variables like occupations, activities. We give them back feedback on data quality at a grade level. we build some working groups to improve data and process quality. We provide them software to collect the data. We develop new statistics based on the data they share. And also we develop visualizations or dashboards that we can integrate with other sources. Here we have some screenshots of the dashboards we provide to the data owners. Sorry that they are in Spanish. We give them a password to the data owners to log in into their own dashboards. It is a very useful tool, especially for local government or small agencies that in those cases that they don't have resources or statisticians to develop this kind of dashboard or visualizations. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Federico, for this presentation that complemented perfectly the presentation that we had before from Mustafa. I got here a message from Vibeke telling me that Uruguay has also been the lead country for one of the expert clinics on interoperability. You mentioned interoperability, how important it is, right? On the legal level, on the methodology and definitions, of course, but also on the technique. Or technology. These are fundamental. One important point that I see also in your presentation is already this idea of data stewardship. So basically you interact with the data owners, not only as a user or the only user of the data, but you try actually to give them an incentive and actually stimulate the improvement of the quality and availability of the data for the entire data community to some extent, right? And making your country richer with information and data for everybody. Eventually, of course, for the Statistical Institute, we are very clear on that. But this is a dimension that is very, very interesting. So you have a certain degree of maturity, I would say, in that evolution towards data stewardship. Thank you very much, Federico. We are before going to the second part of the questions and answers and discussions, I would like now to give the floor to Celia. Celia, I don't know that she was so skilled in shooting videos. What I knew so far is that Celia Emel is a consultant with the UNSD supporting the collaborative on the use of administrative data, as well as with another project that we call the Development Account 13th Tranche on administrative data for disaggregated SDG indicators. Celia has worked with capacity development in official statistics with a large number of countries for the last 10 years. Previously for statistics at Denmark, with a strong focus on cooperation between the NSO and other state institutions, as well as the increased use of administrative data for statistics. Celia, we are very excited to preview your teaser on the Nordic administrative-based statistical systems. Go ahead. Thank you very much, Celia.
Thank you so much, Gabriel. While I'm opening the teaser, I'll give you a bit of background. So we basically started developing this because over the last year, we've received a number of questions and requests from members of the collaborative to hear more about what they do in the Nordic countries and the register systems there. So we thought it would be nice to have some kind of video explaining it. And together with Finland, Denmark, Norway, and Sweden, we started developing it. And it's important to also say that we know that there are really, really great things going on in other parts of the world, as we have also heard just now. So maybe this can be the first one in the series. Now I'm dreaming a little bit big. Yes, and then let me start it. Do you know what register-based systems are? And have you in that connection wondered what they do up in the Nordic countries? Here a quick video with explanations from a selection of the Nordics. Enjoy.
In Finland, we use register data in all statistical compilation. We have statistics that are total register-based and also statistics that use some register data as a supplementary data for imputation or sample frame.
Our system is based upon 3 core registers: on persons, on addresses, and on legal entities. And we combine these 3 base registers together with subject matter registries, for instance, on labor, income, and education. We only use surveys to a limited degree to supplement information that we cannot find in the registers.
According to our Statistics Act, we should use data that already exist in our society, always when it is possible. So the use of the registers has a very strong legal basis.
Then, of course, this system involves a lot of collaboration with the data providers. And so they become our partners in the whole production process. We're in a fortunate situation that when the previous law on Statistics Denmark was enacted in 1966, actually the members of parliament were quite visionary in granting Statistics Denmark access to data from public registers. And not only that, but also it obliged other public authorities to coordinate with Statistics Denmark if and when they want to put in place or change existing registers.
Yes, we work differently with the institutions. We have, for certain institutions, we have agreements. So there we have a good collaboration with the different authorities and agencies. We also in Sweden have a disseminated responsibility for official statistics. So it's very common that the different institutions have a responsibility for official statistics.
There are many benefits with such a system. One major benefit is the consistency in data. It comes at regular intervals, and we do not have to burden persons or businesses with unnecessary questions.
Then, of course, it's not completely free, because then we, instead of having survey costs, there are other costs of doing this. We need, of course, to have systems that receive the data. We still need to validate and error check the data, and then it's just some different costs. But all in all, the cost effectiveness and the cost efficiency of the system is significantly higher than running a survey-based system.
Are you interested in hearing more? That's what we were hoping for. The complete video will be on the Collaborative homepage soon. And that was all. Over to you, Gabriel.
Thank you. This was not all. This was a lot. Thank you very much. It's very interesting to see how the Nordic countries are actually administrative data-based statistical system, right? When basically it's even an exception when they have to complement, administrative data with surveys, when in most of the countries still you try to complement surveys with administrative data. So it's really the other way around. But we also heard that in Denmark, it started a long time ago that it takes time. So we don't have to be shy. We have to make that. There are a couple of challenges on our way, but we can use, of course, all these experiences, and this is the point of this video, to learn and actually make this transition to a more administrative-based statistical system using the experiences of the Nordic countries that we have heard now at the moment. Thank you very much, Celia. So we are looking for the number 2, right, or 3. I hope it's not finished. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now, question and answers. I have not seen a lot of new questions here. I don't know, Karen, if you have been following up on the questions in the chat, and if there are a few maybe that we could address to our 3 last presenters, actually, Mustafa, Federico, and Celia.
No, I haven't seen any question per se. I think it's mostly been comments. Oh yeah, there's one anonymous question that just came in. Can you tell us how you access coverage errors? How do you know that all the population is covered? So that's the question we've received. I think the others, we've addressed them.
Thank you very much. So it's a question that is actually, how do we check and assess the quality of the administrative data that we are using for the production of statistics? I don't know if someone wants to answer here. Maybe Federico first.
Thank you, Gabriel. Yeah, in fact, we are conducting a pilot experience on register-based census in parallel to the traditional census. So that's the moment to measure the coverage of the population. We have other population registers, for instance, the national ID registers and civilian register. So those registers are useful to measure the coverage. Also with migration and death and birth, it's a combination of different registers to measure coverage in populations, for instance.
Thank you, Federico. Thank you very much. And of course, it's always easier when the administrative data providers are your partners, right?
Yes.
So this is an important point. Do we have another very quick, because after we will have to go to the conclusion, one very quick question or comment with a fast answer, and then we go to the conclusions. Is there something left here in the list, Karen? I don't hear you.
Sorry, yeah, no, I think there's another question on the one-way street. How much of a one-way street is the data flow from NSO to register owners? And then there's also the question on data governance culture that came from Zinat.
Yeah, it would be probably a little bit long to answer all of them. I don't know, maybe maybe Mustafa, do you want just to say, you have 1 minute to add a few words, maybe also in relation with some of the question and comments. Just 1 minute. Mustafa, do you want to take the floor?
I'm trying to struggle.
I don't hear you, Mustafa.
Yeah, thank you. I'm trying to focus on the validation of the data through the templates and forms that being checked by both teams from both sides, from the statistical office as well as the data provider, in order to be sure that we are stick with the metadata. And this is, we need to jump to another area of how we have to work with them on the admin data. So admin data is one of the, let's say, tools that being checked and validated through. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mustafa. And again, I mean, come to this conclusion, we have to be partners. We have to partner with the data, administrative data owners, and it's a win-win situation. They have better data about their activities, and eventually we get better data for statistics. Dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, it's now time to wrap up. Vibeke will do that. She's the Vibeke Österreich-Nielsen. She's the Interregional Advisor on Statistical Training and Capacity Development at UNSD, and main co-facilitator with Karen from GPSDD of the Collaborative on Admin Data. Please, I mean, Vibeke, the floor is yours. You have 1-2 minutes. I'm very sorry for that.
Oh, I think it's perfect. We've heard so many great things from everyone here, and I think that is really what the collaborative is about. There's so many excellent contributors that are sharing their experiences. We just heard a very few here, but I've also seen active engagement in the chat from other members of the collaborative. We saw Neda from ESQA saying that the self-assessment tool will be translated to Arabic, which is great. Also seen other comments coming in. And it's really been a great experience in the last, I would say, 1.5 years to see how everyone engages around this, how we really have been able to bring a lot of experiences at different levels of maturity, linked to different thematic areas, highlighting really what a lot of the countries are doing in this area of work. And I think that is what I would like to kind of summarize in this closing as well, that it's so much interesting going on here, and I really see how the countries are progressing with these excellent experiences from Palestine, from Uruguay, and then we really hope that everyone will benefit from the tools that we're also developing, which have been highlighted by countries and other members as key things to also further progress. So I think I'll just highlight one more thing, and that is that what Karen also said in the beginning, under the official agenda of the UN Statistical Commission under agenda item 3A, there is a background document to the collaborative. You can find more information there. If you are a country joining here, you can comment through written statements, and there's also contact information to me and Karen if you want to become a member of the collaborative. And with that, I just really want to thank you, Gabriel, for moderating us through this side event. I want to thank Karen, Celia, Martinho, Jimena, Mustafa, and Federico for excellent contributions. And thanks to everyone who joined and who engaged in this side event. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you very much. And be with us, right? Become a member of this collaborative. It's fun and it's useful. Thank you very much.
And there's also a feedback call now, so please respond to that before you end the call. Thank you, everyone.